get to know who you're with. Both of my previous marriages were very fast, whirlwind romances, and didn't know the person. That's why I set a boundary. That's a big thing, I think. No matter what it is, I think we all should have boundaries. That's the healthy way to live life, to say, this works for me, this really doesn't. And if it doesn't work for you, doesn't mean anything's wrong. We just probably need to go a different way. I learned to set those boundaries, and I wouldn't even discuss marriage with someone until I'd been with them for 2 years.
You know, with me, I learned from my previous marriage and other relationships to be a bit more, not about me and my opinions first, and to be a little more giving and maybe a little less self-centered. For us, I think the biggest foundation for our marriage is our faith. And because we put our faith first, things have not all the time fallen into place perfectly, but it sure helps things.
Hello and welcome to Married and Magnetic, the place for entrepreneurial couples who want to stay happily married.
In each episode, we have real conversations with ordinary couples doing extraordinary things, sharing achievements, everyday joys, challenges, and the mindset and tools that make love the greatest strategic edge.
We are James
And Angela Mitchell.
A real-life married couple. She's a counselor.
And he's a coach.
Parents to 3 kids.
And co-founders of Love Intentionally. We've ridden the highs
and lows
of building businesses while working hard to stay happily married. We've lived it, done the work,
got the t-shirt,
and are here to help you do the same.
This is Married and Magnetic, where love, business, and growth collide. Let's dive in, y'all. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Married and Magnetic. Today, we have Greg and Emily, some guests we're super excited to get to connect with and share their story and their gifts with you. But first about them, Greg and Emily met during the summer of 2017. They had both been married before and had been single for 11 and 15 years when they finally found each other. They married on December 25th, 2020, and it was a surprise to everyone. Emily has 2 children, Andrew, 25, and Rebecca, 23, from her previous marriage. They are officially empty nesters and live in Austin, Texas with their dog, Finley, who's 18 months old. Emily's career began in broadcast journalism and video production, where she wrote, reported, and produced stories across nearly every area of medicine. She later took that experience and launched her own public relations agency and worked exclusively in healthcare, supporting physician practices, hospital clinics, healthcare IT companies, digital health innovators, and health plans. Emily successfully sold her agency in 2020 and is now a communications consultant with medical and healthcare brands. Her book, Credibility RX, a public relations and marketing playbook for healthcare providers, launches this spring 2026. Greg Stevens is a relationship expert, specializing in helping leaders become super communicators when the stakes are high and emotions run strong. Greg holds a degree from Baylor University and is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, leadership and relationship coach, master trainer, professional mediator, and 2-time podcaster. His best-selling book, Build New Bridges, The Art of Restoring Impossible Relationships, has helped people around the world repair relationships they once thought were beyond repair. Welcome, Greg and Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, great. So starting off, you both have had entrepreneurial endeavors. You're both authors. You have, a lot of success and accolades in that area. How do you balance that in your careers with also making sure you're staying connected as a couple?
Well, Emily, I'll let you go first. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we really do focus on our careers quite a bit, and we have since we've known each other. At the beginning of our relationship, it was almost a little bit easier because Greg traveled all the time with his job, so we would only see each other mostly on the weekends. And so that was pretty easy to carve out that time. And also, I was a single mom at the time, so I had a lot of responsibilities during the week. So weekends were definitely a great time for us to be able to focus on each other and our relationship and not just our businesses. Since we've been married, we definitely still try and carve out and even schedule time, whether it's date night or just to sit down and talk and have an intimate conversation. Because of our schedules being busy and being so hyper-focused on our businesses. Greg, I don't know, what am I missing?
Well, it's interesting. I think we both have a real strong work ethic, and you love what you do. My career is it feels like more of a mission than a career. It's a little different because I grew up as a father, a preacher's kid. So ministry was always, I guess, in my blood. And I wanted to do something that was a little deeper than most organizations go. So my career is a little different. So it's more of a calling to me. And Emily's amazing at what she does, but she also has a distance from it that probably I don't. Mine kind of bleeds over into almost everything in my life.
Right. So, because both of you are career focused, right? Whether it's, just the drive and ambition or the calling or whatever, is pulling you towards that. Do you feel like finding someone else who has that same drive and ambition has been helpful? Or is it hard because you both have that? And how do we focus on the relationship? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Go ahead, Emily, if you want.
I mean, I was going to say, I think it's helpful because we motivate each other. And I'll give you an example. Greg is a motivation to me about writing my book. I would have never thought about writing a book. And after I saw him do it and he put so much time and energy and effort into it, he motivated me. I mean, so if he hadn't, I don't think I would have ever really, started to do something like that. So that's one example where he's definitely motivated me. It's not a hindrance. I mean, it comes with its challenges, but for the most part, to me, Greg's a motivation.
Well, for me, I watch how she works, and it's interesting because I think my work ethic has actually gotten stronger since being with her because when she gets in on a project, she's locked in and she blocks everything out. I'm that when I find something fun. When I'm doing the grind stuff, it's hard for me to stay focused, but when I'm engaging with people, it's much easier. But I also believe that we prioritize our relationship, even though we do a lot of different work and we enjoy our jobs and we enjoy our career. I think we know that our first commitment is our relationship, and we know where that lives. And we also, I think, being older and having this be, a second in a relationship, a marriage for Emily, this is my third. And mine were a long time ago. And I thought, I'm really going to learn what I'm going to do if I'm ever going to do this again. And I feel so comfortable now because I know that my relationship is first. I know where that lives, and it's always the main priority for me. And outside of that, I enjoy what I get to do in the world.
So it's interesting. Two things kind of popped out, right? One thing that you said, Greg, in one breath was she gets super locked in and blocks everything out. And then on the other side of the coin is, I know my relationship is first. When she gets super locked in on a project, I know there's probably a part of you that gives her the space to do that and the grace to do that. And you know that. And then at some point there might be that like, oh, hey, like, what about this guy? How do you manage that moment?
I try to notice it first. I could get a look from Emily. It's like, I'm working right now. And it's not from what I typically find is when I go and bother her or pull her attention away in that moment, it's because I'm not even thinking. I'm kind of off in my own head because we do live in the same house. She has her office upstairs. I'm downstairs. Real simple for me to go up and ask her a PR question or a marketing question, and she's dealing with all of hers. So sometimes I get the look and I go, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," and we just let it go. That's another thing we do in our relationship. I will say we have disagreements like anyone else, but we really learn to let it go and just when it's done, it's done. We were with some friends at a dinner playing these cards, and one of the cards was, "When did you know that this person was the person for you?" And the answer Emily gave shocked me. Yeah, do you remember what the answer was?
Yeah. Sometimes people say, oh, it was when we were on a trip or it was when he said, I love you. And for me, it was when we had a disagreement. We talked about it. And it's the first time in my life that I let it go. And I thought, wow, okay. I feel good that I can move on from it not pull out the kitchen sink each time, that saying, right? When you just bring up stuff from the past and let it build and build and build. And I knew with Greg that just the way he communicated and then helped me communicate better, that I could let it go. And I thought, okay, this is the person for me, among other things, but that was a big part of it.
And
Huge.
I,
Getting to
I think that
experience.
also comes with, maturity and things like that. It's like you get to understand what's really important in life. I think the older you get and you start to say, having this disagreements, yeah, let's figure it out and let's get through it. Because at the end of your life, that's not what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at the beautiful time you had together. So let's make every moment the best we can. And you're still going to have issues.
Yeah. I love that. And, I think, I don't know, we could maybe blame it on Disney movies or something, but I think there's this concept or fairy tale that, you just like fall in love and then love is enough. And, when you get into the reality of relationships, they are a cycle of rupture and repair. So it's not finding someone who you're never going to have conflict with or disagree with. That actually, to me, would create kind of a boring and not very deep relationship, but rather the person that can repair with you, right? And repair well. And so, and I was kind of getting this visual in my head when you were talking, Emily, that, rather than, I feel like sometimes like we have a disagreement and it's like a block and then we like get through it, but the block's still there. And then the next disagreement, we like stack the block on top and like eventually there's all these blocks stacked in a tower and then they just like fall down. And it feels like you are like, oh, there's this block, we have this, disagreement, and then we work through it, and now the block is put away, it's gone, and so the next disagreement could start fresh. You're not stacking them on top of each other in a way that creates those big meltdowns after things have built up. So,
Yeah, that is exactly it. And like Greg referenced, we almost have the advantage on our side that we have been in relationships and marriages before and have learned from our mistakes. Again, it doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes and don't have disagreements, but I think we just have the tools and the training and the maturity to deal with it.
yeah, so I wanted to ask you all, since you are a remarriage, right? You've both been married before, and we have clients that will come to us often in sometimes at the start of a second or third marriage and say like, okay, I want to get this right this time. I want to do this intentionally, right? I want to do this differently. And so they'll seek us out for that reason. And I love that. I love that they're trying to be proactive. So what have you all learned? What were some lessons that maybe you learned earlier in life or in previous relationships that is allowing you to do things differently and more intentionally this time around?
I'll go first on that one. I felt for me that get to know who you're with. Both of my previous marriages were very fast, whirlwind romances, and didn't know the person. And that's why I set a boundary. That's a big thing. I think no matter what it is, I think we all should have boundaries. That's the healthy way to live life, to say, this works for me, this really doesn't. And if it doesn't work for you, doesn't mean anything's wrong. We just probably need to go a different way. I learned to set those boundaries, and I wouldn't even discuss marriage with someone until I'd been with them for 2 years because I needed that boundary. And it helped me so much. But I was always open to it, but I knew for me, I needed to, people thought, well, he'll never get married. And I was like, I didn't think I would either again. But when I met Emily and it worked, it's the most peaceful thing I've ever experienced. I remember the day we got married, I had this overwhelming peace just cover me like I've never had. And that was not the way it was before, but we had gotten to know each other. We had our commitment. And that was it. It wasn't a feeling, it was a commitment. And, sometimes, some days you don't feel good. So other days you feel great. Marriage breathes just like a body does, goes in and out. And there's a lot of things that go along with that. Some days you feel great in it. Some days you don't. But that doesn't change what your commitment is. And that's one of the things. I've got a real partner, and I'm more, I guess, vulnerable than I've been in any relationship. And I love it. It helps me grow as a person.
With me, I learned from my previous marriage and other relationships to be a bit more, that it's not about me and my opinions first, and to be a little more giving and maybe a little less self-centered. But for us, I think the biggest foundation for our marriage is our faith. And because we put our faith first, things have not all the time fallen into place perfectly, but it sure helps things. And I didn't have that in my first marriage. So to me, that's probably been the foundation and why I feel like things go well when we remember our faith first, and then also communicating better. I thought I was a good communicator going into the relationship with Greg, but he has taught me, to be even, to be a stronger communicator.
She's a great communicator, so don't let her fool you there. It's really easy with Emily. We get to really talk about the things that really do matter, and it's not a difficult conversation. I thrive on it a little more. I have that gene in me. It's funny because we have a group of friends where all the guys are very deep and all the women are like they like a certain level as well, so they get to go. And I think it's important for men to have men friends and women to have women friends, because there's that experience you can have, and you need that outlet to be able to express it. I think it's really rough when a man or a woman don't have friends outside the marriage, because I think there's a missing there of a connection as well.
You mentioned vulnerability, and I imagine that definitely plays into your ability to communicate. I'm wondering, what does vulnerability mean to you as a man, and how did you come across that knowledge, that experience?
Well, vulnerability to me is just opening up about things that opening up when you trust someone about everything. And as a coach, as I get out there, I really practice what I teach. So I'm very vulnerable out in the world, to just be honest with you. I think true leaders are vulnerable. You'll hear Brene Brown talking about you can't really demonstrate courage without vulnerability. And it's so true. But there's also an intimacy of vulnerability I think I've had that I never knew existed until Emily and I met. Because I think deep down, I always had a guard and a lack of trust. But with Emily, that's been erased. And I feel like, I think what shows up is just who I am. And, all the hard edges and all the sore spots and things like that, and being accepted for it. And not doubting that I will be. I think at first I was like, am I going to be really accepted for this or that? Uh, you know, I don't look like I used to. I'm getting older. I don't have the looks. There's just things deteriorate. You sit there and you've got to be vulnerable, or it can eat you up and you can try to hide it. I love that I don't have to hide it.
Seems like that is a key foundation component to being a super communicator. Tell us a little bit more about what a super communicator is and how that shows up in your relationship.
Well, yeah, super communicators, they do things like create psychological safety. They listen for things that are, the underlying words, what's behind the words. They adapt to things quickly. Also, super communicators speak into a person's listening, since they help lead people change because people hear them. Their message lands. It's one of the things when I first started doing this type of work. I wanted to be the type of communicator when I spoke in front of a group, I could speak into anyone's listening. That's hard to do, because when I would teach a class and someone would give me low grades, at first you want to go, well, that person didn't show up in the room and they kept walking out and they gave me a low grade. Well, I said, I want everyone to be able to hear that. How do I reach that person? So when I got back that feedback, rather than saying that's not fair, I would actually say, what do I do next time to do that? So that's what I help teach people to dive in, to find those deeper meanings in what people are, create that psychological safety. Say the hard thing, talk about the elephant in the room, and don't give your power away to circumstance or other people. And that's a super communicator. There's different ways. Some people, they're super communicators. They might have one of the few, like clarity, compassion, maybe different things like that. But what if you could do that all under pressure? Some people are like, they'll charm, empathy, eloquence. They might have one of those. But I work in the area of clarity, compassion, and pressure all at once when they converge. And that can be in a man-woman relationship. It can be in a CEO talking to a board, team meeting. I had a team mediation last week. I do team mediations where I teach people to build these skills. And it's so important because everyone needs them, but very few people have them.
I will tell you that being married to a super communicator has helped me personally with relationships with some of my family members. And I would have never had the courage or even been prepped the way Greg has helped me have very difficult conversations, with a couple different family members. So I'm lucky that all I have to do is walk downstairs and talk to a super communicator. There you go.
So being married to a super communicator, is he like that all the time? Or can you kind of tell when he's like laying it on you? Like, can you feel when you're being somewhat coached or like brought through that process?
Yes, yes. And there are times where I feel like Greg is talking to me as if I were a client, and I will say, okay, it's Emily, your wife, not Emily, your client. And I don't need your coaching right now. I need you to just listen to me or listen to me complain. You don't have to fix it. Just let me vent. So yeah, there's those instances, but for the most part, and then I will say, yes, I used to think I was a pretty decent communicator. And then there are times where I feel like, okay, we talked about it. And then Greg will say, well, bring up something else. I'm like, I thought we're done. We're good. We don't need to talk about it anymore. But no, it is, I would say I would take the advantages of being married to a super communicator over any of those, occasional annoyances. Occasional.
I have to say one thing. Emily also speaks up, like she talked about. Sometimes, I'm just going through life. This is my passion, and I get all into it. And then she's like, "Hold on, this is this way." I was like, "Oh, she spoke up." I've seen other people not speak up, and they resent it. And I would say Emily is super communicator as well. She sits there, she understands the words underneath. She's done the hard work. That's just it. Super communicators actually go out and work on their communication skills. It doesn't just come natural. If someone says, "Hey, I'm a super communicator," how many classes have you take? How long have you sat and listened to other people train you? How much have you actually worked on developing that? Because it doesn't just one day I just learned it. You have to go out and you have to dig in and really expose yourself, practice, come back. It's a lifelong endeavor.
Yeah, Emily, I appreciate it when you were saying, like, I just need to vent. I don't need to fix this, right? We've run into that pretty early on. James learned to ask, like, is this something you're wanting help or advice with, or are you just needing to be heard, right? And then we heard the phrase, do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged? And then James added to it.
There's that fourth H. When you do those first three right, you can add humped into the mix. Like, which one are you looking for right now?
Oh, but yeah, he learned to ask if I needed help or I just wanted to be heard. And 9 times out of 10, I'm an external processor. I just needed to talk about it. I often, through my own talking, could figure out what I needed to do. I just kind of needed that sounding board, and I didn't need him to fix it. So I'm glad Greg's been trained that way too. So question then, Greg, this super communicator, what I'm thinking when you're talking about this, I'm like, yes, this is great. These are all great skills to have. We'll just go hypothetically. Let's pretend one person in the relationship is a counselor, like
Okay.
myself, right? And does that really great for clients and coworkers and all these people in the world, right? What this hypothetical person has found is that when you're in a relationship, it sometimes is harder, right? Like those relationships can trigger our wounds, can trigger our, reach at the rawness and those sore spots and that vulnerability. How do you stay a super communicator? Or how can you be a super communicator when you're being triggered or there's that kind of big emotion that comes?
I think it's a combination of all the training. I think you continue, like I'll say last week I was going through, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I was going through a real tough time. I was about to do a team mediation that was very difficult. And then at home, Emily can tell you, I was stressed probably beyond what I've ever been. And she could feel it. And I knew I needed to figure something out for the client and for my marriage. I was like, it's not fair for either one. But I also believe I am a person of faith. The God gives us spirit, whatever you want to call it, universe actually gives us the answers if we're open to them. And our tendency is to get tired. I'm doing all the work myself. It can be easy. So my friend called me up. He said, "Hey, have you read Mel Robbins' Let Them book?" I said, "I know the concept. I've been teaching all this for you." He said, "No, have you read it?" I'm like, "Well, no, but I've got 7 books I'm reading right now, and I don't want another one." And he said, "Well, I found something interesting in it." So I just pulled it up, downloaded it, and went on a errand and started listening to it right away. And I had a breakthrough in that. And I've been doing this for years, and I've known about the book. But what it did was bring what I knew and understood into it, woke me up around it. It was like going from, in our first story, it was just like I knew the concept. It was going from black and white to color. Just wow, what a beautiful space. But you're never a finished product. And so if you're talking about the therapy, guess what? This is your chance to learn another thing, because I believe what happens is your work will help you at home and your home will help you at work. I believe it's all integrated. It's just our resistance to what's in front of us at the time. Because I've had friends say, "Don't you just wish you didn't have to think about this?" I was like, no, I like the results this gets. Yeah, I don't think you'd want to throw it out. Just look at what you're trying to learn that day, because I think there's a struggle. And yeah, it's like, let it go. Like Emily was like, man, I'm so glad this is showing up that you can let these things go.
See that being a major way to get presence back into the household. So we call you all parallelpreneurs. You each have your own business, you're entrepreneurs in your own life. And so you have this sort of parallel thing, and we can get in our heads as entrepreneurs a lot, focusing on whatever the problem is. Do you have any practices for yourselves that help you to bring presence into your own body, into your own life, so you can better connect with each other?
Emily?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, it's a little simplistic and straightforward. If I need to be outside, if I jog, walk, work out, that helps me clear my head and just be able to kind of get refreshed and centered again. And centered again, not only with work, but even with my relationship with Greg or my kids or my friends or whoever it is. But for me, I would say, exercise and being outside can play a big role. And then sometimes if it's a work related issue, it's, talking to a mentor or a coworker and, being vulnerable and saying, here's what's going on and here's why I can't get over this hump, and then just kind of getting feedback from a friend or a mentor, that's in the business. Because, yeah, I get frustrated or stuck on something with work. And I think it's, I think it's human nature that the first person I'm going to take it out on is Greg. And that's it's the last thing I want to do. And especially given the fact that I'm in an upstairs office and he's in a downstairs office. So, proximity isn't always our friend.
And for me, I go on those walks with Emily, and that really helps me. I love, until it gets too hot in Texas, then she'll tell you I just don't get out in the heat like I used to. But another practice I do for clients as well, and certain times when I need to be present with friends, I have it's called a 2-minute clearing exercise. I set the timer for 2 minutes. I close my eyes, I clear my head. I ask spirit to just come in and relax. Then I just try to think of nothing, get my head completely clear and get present. And then I'll either close up the day or go talk to Emily or whatever that next client is. I do this on meetings as well. Before we have meetings, I'll sit down and with my clients and we'll do 2 minutes of clearing before we begin, because we found when you clear your head out of all that space that's saying, I got a call here, I've got to do this at the end of the day, I've got to do that. You're distracted. If you zero in, clear it out, you'll get so much more done in the next 30 minutes or an hour if you clear out your brain like that.
So you both have mentioned it now at different points in this podcast about the importance of having other people to lean on, right? So Greg, you were talking about you having male friends and Emily having female friends. And Emily, you were just talking about even if you're stuck with the business something, can you call a friend, a business coach, whoever, right? And we also have stressed and put in our book how valuable it is to have that like support squad, right? That I think, unfortunately, as marriage has evolved, one of the expectations that has come from it is that your partner, your spouse, is your everything, right? And it's kind of sweet, like James has said to me before, like, I just love you so much. You're my everything. And I take that as very sweet. And realistically, right, we can't be each other's therapist and best friend and accountant and business partner and hype man and, right, like all the things, right? Lover, right? There's just so many things there. Spiritual guide or, whatever. There's so many. And so, we've really seen value in having that kind of support squad. And it sounds like that's something that you both do as well. Is that something you've done intentionally or structure in your life, or that just kind of evolved naturally? How did that start for you all?
I'll start out. I've always had to have my close, circle of girlfriends. I think it's so important in any relationship. And then also, with work too, and you own your own business, you have to have an outlet. You have to have a life outside of work and quite honestly, outside of my marriage with Greg. So and Greg knew this up front, how important my friends were. And I have to tell you, when I met Greg, I was so relieved. He has more friends than I do. And I thought I had a lot of friends. But that was actually very comforting to me because I hadn't experienced that before in another relationship. So um, we do carve out time, I would say almost weekly, to spend with just our friends and not necessarily with each other. And I think that's really important. I mean, they show study after study, right? Women who have these girls' nights out just makes for a healthier person. And then for us, it's a healthier relationship. I'm excited to get home and see Greg. So that's been important for me.
I'd agree. I think it's important for the mental health of everyone. I think when Emily goes off, and I say go on trips with them, I think that's great. Some people are so worried about that. I've got such a deep level of trust. Go on trips, go enjoy yourself. I know when she comes back from that trip, our relationship is going to be renewed and regenerated. And we're the same way with travel with us. We like to travel with friends. We like to travel alone. And so we've traveled in groups. I think it's for me, traveling with my buddies and with my wife and with couples. To me, it's like a big melting pot. It's all fun. I want to do it all. I don't want to do any one thing over and over.
So marriage and business, I mean, we're always working on something, Angela, I love the phrase she says, something's always getting easier, something's always getting harder. I'm curious, what are you two working on in your marriage these days?
That's a good question. I know for us, it's carving out time to travel because it is important because there is kind of a renewed or refreshed feeling or love, even if we're getting away and just being with each other and exploring new things, whether it's a new country or a new city. I would say that's one of the things that we're working on. I mean, I think we're always working on something, or at least in my head, we are always working on something. But I don't know, Greg, what am I missing?
Well, I think it's interesting because after Emily sold her company, she for about a year and a half worked for the company who bought her, and then she just recently left. And I was excited for that. because I knew some of the stress day to day would be gone for her. But it was interesting while she was getting out of that, my stress was going up. And I've learned for me, I needed to make some changes over the last couple of weeks. And just personally, I needed to get back to where uh, I didn't have the stress, and I'm there now. I can truly say everyone can tell there's a weight off, but that was some work I still had to do on my own. She couldn't do it for me. She was actually very patient with me. That's the other thing. Allowing your partner to go through their spaces can be very difficult. But one thing I knew was Emily was there. I opened up to her about some things, and she was nothing but love to me and openness and a place for me to land. And we talked about all of that. And though it was a process in letting it go, but I knew that it needed to get done because it wasn't helping me, it wasn't helping her, wasn't helping the relationship, wasn't helping our businesses. And all that turned around. But I think everyone has those breakthroughs we need to have. And it's good you got a partner there, but some of that work you got to do on your own, even though you're in a relationship.
Amen.
I find it's mostly the work that I'm going to do on my own.
Exactly.
The better I am, the better I get to be as a husband, partner, right? Just like you said. I know Angela appreciates it.
Yeah, for sure. It's much more fun to come home to someone who's vibrant and enjoying themselves rather than stuck in the minutia of all the little things that really don't matter in the end of, yeah, we need to go out and make a living and do all these other things. But in the end, that's not I always said this in college, you're never going to go back and go, wow, I'm so glad I studied late for that test. You will remember going on spring break with your friends. And those are the things that really matter in the world of going and having that. Be responsible, do those things, but don't forget what you're doing them for.
Greg, quality of your life is quality of your relationships, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, Greg took the words right out of my mouth because what I was going to say, at the end of our lives, when we look back, are we really going to say, I am so glad that I spent all those hours working on my business? I would much rather say, I am so glad that I took the time to invest in my marriage with Greg at the end, not so much, oh, great, I built this wonderful business and was able to sell it. Yes, that was a nice plus, but truly in the end, you really just have to prioritize what means the most to you.
James has been known to say, like, if you want to show me what your priorities are, show me your calendar, right? Like how we are spending our time, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, my marriage is first. And then it's like, all right, so where are those
Prove
date
it.
nights in your calendar, right? Where are you spending time with your person?
Can I ask y'all a question?
Yeah, please.
What jazzes you most about your marriage? You've been married, you've done all these things, and you're doing this podcast and all the things you do. I've gotten to know you a little over the last year, and I've really enjoyed it. But the energy you two have has always been attractive. It's beautiful. What jazzes both of you about your marriage most?
I got one.
Okay.
So if you would have asked me probably call it 3 years ago what intimacy was, I would have just said sex. And if we do that, then I can have some emotional intimacy. And what jazzes me right now is a holistic picture of what intimacy is. And so we did this intimacy styles quiz we created to create your styles of it with sexual, emotional, physical, intellectual, experiential, and creation intimacy. If you were counting, I only got 6 because apparently off the top of my head, that last one's not going to come right out very, very easily.
Spiritual. It was spiritual.
It was spiritual.
That's when you
Great.
left.
So what really jazzes me is leaning into all the types of intimacy that we get to have. So you talk about traveling. For us, that's experiential intimacy. Adventure is one of our top family values. And then creation. So creating this podcast, creating this business, working in this purpose-driven work, and letting myself fully experience and feel the growth of our intimacy when we can lean into all of those other ones. And then naturally that helps our 2 favorites, my favorite being sexual and hers being emotional.
If we lean into all of them, we both get our needs met.
Good.
You, because I know you have younger children, and it's harder. I mean, when my kids were younger, it was hard to balance all those things and to put your partner first. And I think that Greg and I have the advantage that we met when we were in our 50s. And so we didn't have the younger kids equation part of it. Of course, we still have my children and they're still my kids, but they're out of the house. And so we have the advantage of being able to focus on ourselves, without as many of those external factors that you have when you have younger children. So kudos to you all for what you do. I do admire it. I really do. And there aren't a lot of people like you that can. And I'm not saying it's always, rainbows and unicorns, but you guys have some good tools you work with. It sounds like.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it was, our youngest is 11 now, so I do feel like we're through, the baby and toddler years, which was also coinciding with James really building his first business was a lot. It could be stressful and not a lot of time. And so I do feel, yeah, something gets easier, something gets harder as the kids grow, but it has gotten easier in that regard. And I think, I've say frequently, so I've probably said it on this podcast many times, but I think the best gift we can give our kids is healthy, happy parents and a healthy, happy relationship, right? So we really have put our relationship first and making sure we're staying connected because we also believe that is what is best for our children. That's what they're going to see modeled in the home, which is often then when they grow up, what they're going to seek out in their own relationships, right, is what they're used to and what they've seen. And so we want to model the best thing we can for them so that hopefully they, find partners that love and respect them and are committed and all those things. So thank you for that. What I'm excited about our relationship, I would say, I mean, yes, to James, like all the different types of intimacy are really fun to lean into. And I would say the other thing is this. I think as the longer we've been together and have worked through various stages and phases in each of our own issues, there's just been a deep trust that has built. And I think with that, I'm more of a safety, security seeker in life in general, whether it's finances or whatever. And so for me, having that safety and security allows me to feel this freedom and excitement to just explore like, oh, well, what's next? What's going to be the next phase of our life, right? And what are we going to do? And okay, we're going to write a book. Okay, we're going to start a podcast. And I think that strong foundation we've built has just given me, it feels very liberating, at the same time to feel like, oh, we're going to make it through anything together, however hard it gets, and then have each other and support each other. And so what next? Usually he's the creative one. So what idea does he have over here that we might want to tackle and take on next? And it's
that
exciting.
She can actually make happen since she's the organized one.
Because I have spreadsheets.
You talk about the insecurity, and I think that's such a huge part of, first of all, a marriage, but also then you factor in the partners that are both entrepreneurs. So I view safety and security probably similar to you, Angela, and Greg is more of a risk taker. And so there have been times where we have just different philosophical viewpoints on that. And navigating that can sometimes be tricky when you're both an entrepreneur. A lot of people think, oh, you guys are like a power couple, and isn't that great? You both have your own businesses. Well, I mean, owning your own business is great. The flexibility is nice. And if it does well, that's wonderful. But then there's also that uncertainty all the time with owning your own business. We don't have the luxury of falling back as being a W-2 employee or an employer paying for a workshop, or, we're constantly making sure that we've got a business development pipeline with those clients that are there. So the safety and security, I know, is a big part, not only in a marriage, and well, not only in a business, but also a marriage.
Only you would have told me that so many much years earlier. Huh? She did, actually. She did. Told me lots, and I finally got it. I finally got the message. Finally heard her and stopped trying to fix it.
Well, I would say that's where, for me, being single for so long and going out and doing my thing, I never thought about certain things, security. I was fine with where I was. And being in a relationship, the biggest stressor for me of all of it would be, I don't want to let her down. That's the biggest thing for me. I don't want to let her down. And even though I know how she feels about me, well, we would work through it and all of that. But your mind, When it goes to fear, it's a distortion. So fear always distorts. And that's where I think the biggest fear that I would have as an entrepreneur is letting her down.
That one immensely. Greg, you've helped a lot of people be able to have these communication skills. You've written the book about it. Tell us a little bit about your book, your business, and
How
how
people
people
can
can
find.
find you.
Well, my book is called Build New Bridges, The Art of Restoring Impossible Relationships. It was written, I was a master trainer for Crucial Learning, which has crucial conversations, crucial accountability, crucial influence, getting things done, and the power of habit. I was master certified in all of those, training them all over the world, doing keynotes. And I decided to write my book about the application of all those things I learned. So it's really kind of my biography at one level, but it goes back in how I applied and how I cleaned up 36 relationships, how I've coached for years. It's it was a love relationship with my book. I needed to get it out. Now that I've gotten it, I feel so I don't even think about it now. But I love helping people communicate, have better relationships. I told someone the other day, what turns me on the most is seeing someone go, my gosh, I haven't talked to my mom in 20 years or 10 years or my ex-mother-in-law and getting those things cleaned up. And so how people can find me, just go to alignment-resource. My book's there. Talk about some of the work I do. I do masterminds. I call master teams. I also do team mediations. People say mediate, isn't that for lawyers? Well, I'm certified with lawyers and judges, but I have a certification in that. And what I do is I do team mediations where we take intact teams and help them talk through their issues so they can truly lay them down and move forward in alignment as a team. It's amazing what a team can do when they're in alignment. But when they're not, I don't call them a team, they're a work group. There's a real distinction there. Team holds everyone accountable and they work together. The energy's high. Do they have problems? Sure, but they know how to talk through them. But most teams have issues because they've never completed their past with each other. And when they do that, it's a rough go to get there, but boy, is amazing the breakthroughs that can happen when they do.
Well, thanks.
Excellent. And Emily, you're stepping into a new season of career. Tell us about that and
I
who
am.
what kind of folks you're working with and how they can find you.
Also work in communication. It's just a different form. It's public relations and marketing with medical and healthcare brands. I help tell their stories to help raise visibility among their most important audiences. So whether it's patients or investors or colleagues or peers. My book, Credibility RX, a public relations and marketing playbook for healthcare providers, that's coming out spring of 2026. And let's see, people can find me at emilyschmitz.co and on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
And that's SCHMITZ. So if you're thinking Emily Schmitz, yeah.
So if you're listening, you got the words there. And if you're able to check out the show notes, we'll have everything linked down there. Greg and Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to have this conversation. We like to end these with a little rapid fire questions, a few of these, just to get your take on some of the ins and outs on a marriage.
First one, what do you call each other? What's your pet names?
Sweetheart.
Honey. That's exciting.
What's your favorite snack?
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Gosh, I would say popcorn.
Who's the first to apologize after a fight?
Greg.
Be me. It's usually my fault.
No,
You
Let's
are not
be
the
honest.
first husband that has said that.
we've got the Super Communicator here. So yeah, we both agree it's Greg.
Let him shine in that. And who makes the bed in the morning?
We
Funny
switch.
thing, we both do that. I would say I did for a very long time until I finally spoke up and said, Greg, are you ever going to make the bed?
And I have to tell you, this is a funny story. I thought every time I tried to help her, she said, no, I got it. No, I got it. I thought maybe there's some, luck thing she does. She makes it every morning. It just has to be her, or superstition. So I stopped trying. And then I found out later, she's like, you never make the bed. It's like, every time I try, you shut me down. Why? Anyway.
Maybe you weren't putting the pillows on right. The decorative pillows in our house, they have like
So
just
many
the right
pillows.
positioning. James
That's right.
doesn't. He gets it right now.
And Greg does
All
get
right, y'all. Well, this has been an absolute joy of a conversation. Thank you for sharing your hearts. Thank you for sharing what's worked. Thank you for sharing what hasn't worked. Thank you for helping us normalize these conversations in marriage, and especially for those of us that are, I'm going to say, brave/courageous enough to step into a world of entrepreneurship alongside of it. If this is your first time listening to the show, thank you so much for being here. Take a look at some of the other episodes. We've got brilliant ones before this and brilliant ones coming after this. If you haven't left us a review yet, we would absolutely adore you to do that. Thank you so much. We hope you have a day, a life, and just full of love. Yeah. That sounds great. We'll end on that note. We'll let that be enough for today. We'll see you on the next one.